I gave my two sons the same inheritance, but 5 years later, one had lost everything.
In a peaceful village surrounded by green hills and beautiful farmland, there lived a wealthy and respected man named Ezekiel. He had two sons, Daniel and Samuel. Though they were brothers, their personalities were very different. Daniel was patient and responsible, while Samuel was ambitious, adventurous, and eager to enjoy life. One evening, Ezekiel called his two sons into the family house. He had something important to tell them. After years of hard work, he had decided to travel far away for a few years. Before leaving, however, he wanted to divide his wealth between his sons. Looking at his sons, Ezekiel said, "My sons, what I am about to give you is not simply money. It is an opportunity to build your future. Use it wisely, because one day, you will have to answer for what you do with it." Both sons listened carefully, unaware that the decision would change their lives forever. Ezekiel divided his wealth equally between Daniel and Samuel. Daniel received his portion with gratitude and immediately began thinking about how to invest it. Samuel, however, looked at his inheritance with excitement. He saw it as a chance to finally enjoy the life he had always dreamed of. The following morning, Ezekiel left the village. Before departing, he turned back and looked at his two sons one last time. He trusted that he had prepared them for life, but he did not know that the inheritance would reveal the difference between wisdom and foolishness. Daniel decided not to waste what his father had given him. He invested in farming, bought equipment, hired workers, and expanded the family farmland. Every day, he worked patiently and saved his profits. Little by little, his inheritance began producing even more wealth. Samuel chose a completely different path. He moved into a luxurious apartment, bought expensive clothes, a new car, and everything he had ever wanted. For the first time in his life, he felt rich. But instead of asking how to grow his inheritance, he began asking himself what else he could buy. Soon, Samuel surrounded himself with people who loved his money more than they loved him. He threw expensive parties and spent freely just to impress his friends. Whenever they praised him, he felt powerful. But Samuel didn't realize that people who stay because of your money often disappear. When the money is gone, Daniel saw what was happening and tried to warn his younger brother. He told Samuel, "Be careful. Money can disappear faster than you think." But Samuel laughed. He believed Daniel was simply too serious. To him, life was about enjoying the present. He never imagined that the wealth he was spending so freely would one day run out. Then the unexpected happened. Samuel's money began disappearing. First, he sold some of his property. Then he sold his car. Soon, his expensive possessions were gone. The friends who once surrounded him began disappearing too. One evening, Samuel sat alone in an almost empty room, staring at his wallet. There was almost nothing left. For the first time, he asked himself, "How did I lose everything?" 5 years passed. Then one morning, Ezekiel finally returned home. He was older now, with gray hair covering his head. But his heart was filled with excitement. He could not wait to see his sons again. As he walked back into the village, he wondered how much they had achieved with the inheritance he had left behind. Daniel was the first to see his father. He ran toward him and embraced him tightly. "Father, welcome home." Ezekiel smiled with tears in his eyes. He could immediately see that Daniel had used his inheritance wisely. His farm was thriving, his workers were doing well, and Daniel himself had become a responsible and successful man. But Ezekiel had only one question. "Where is your brother Samuel?" Daniel's smile disappeared. He looked at his father and said, "Father, Samuel has lost everything." Ezekiel was shocked. What happened? Daniel explained everything, how Samuel had spent his inheritance, sold his property, surrounded himself with false friends, and eventually lost everything. Ezekiel's heart sank. He immediately asked to see his younger son. Daniel took his father to a small rented room. When Ezekiel entered, he could hardly recognize the son he had left 5 years earlier. Samuel was sitting alone in a poor, nearly empty room. The expensive clothes were gone. The luxury was gone. The confidence was gone. Only regret remained. When Samuel saw his father, he whispered, "Father." Samuel fell to his knees. "Father, I'm sorry," he cried. "You trusted me, and I wasted everything. I thought I knew what I was doing, but I was wrong." Tears rolled down his face. "I don't deserve another chance." For a moment, the room was completely silent. Ezekiel looked at his broken son. He could have shouted at him. He could have reminded him of every mistake he had made. Instead, Ezekiel reached down and helped him stand. "My son," he said, "you made a terrible mistake, but your mistake does not have to become the end of your story." Then he embraced Samuel. Samuel cried against his father's shoulder, finally understanding that he had lost his money, but he had not lost his father's love. Ezekiel did not simply give Samuel another fortune. Instead, Samuel was given an opportunity to rebuild his life. He began working on Daniel's farm. He woke up before sunrise, worked in the fields, learned discipline, and slowly discovered the value of hard work. For the first time, Samuel understood that wealth was not something to show off. It was something to manage. Years passed. Samuel had changed. He became disciplined, patient, and wise. With Daniel's guidance and his own hard work, he eventually built a successful business. This time, he did not use his success to impress people. He used it to create opportunities, help others, and build a future. Daniel looked at his younger brother with pride. Samuel had finally become the man his father always hoped he would be. One day, Samuel stood before a group of young people and shared his story. He told them, "I once had everything and lost it because I wanted to impress people. I thought money would make me happy, but I learned that money without wisdom can destroy you." The young people listened carefully. Samuel continued, "Never waste an opportunity because you think you will always have another one." Years later, Ezekiel stood between his two sons. Daniel had built his future through discipline. Samuel had rebuilt his life through humility and hard work. Ezekiel placed his hands on both their shoulders and smiled. His sons had learned an important lesson. An inheritance can give you a beginning, but wisdom determines where you finish. And sometimes, losing everything can become the very thing that teaches you what truly matters.